I could hear my colleagues underneath the rubble that were calling and suffering. And then I stopped hearing their voices because they started dying. And I stayed there.
We're following this earthquake in Haiti, a 7.0 magnitude, in only about 10 or so miles from the capital of Port-au-Prince.
Today we're sitting here talking with Jean Cheriste. He's been a long-term friend of ours, connected with the mission, and is a lay preacher. He's going to share with us today about his experience with the earthquake and what God did for him. And I'll interpret for you so that you can understand. Vous pouvez expliquer my story.
12 janvier 2010.
From the 12th of January 2010.
C'est une longue histoire.
It's a long story. Everywhere I go, I'm always telling God, thank you. Whenever somebody asks what I would like to pray about, I say, tell God, thank you. Tuesday, the 12th of January 2010, at 4:50, I had the man I was working for called for me to come to the 5th floor of the building. Well, the man put his hand on my shoulder to talk to me about what he wanted to talk to me about. I was looking, and I could tell on the 5th floor there was some sort of movement happening. And I saw that the top of the cathedral, which was next door, was coming towards the school where I was working. I looked over the other direction, and the head of Holy Trinity Cathedral was coming towards us as well. While the movement was happening, it all fell down. I didn't see the tops of those buildings again. And I saw the country became dark. All of the buildings were falling. And the chance for me is that the top of the building that I was in was done in tin. And I fell. And I was stuck hanging up above. All of the bosses that were working with us, the other workers, I didn't see any of them. And I could hear screaming and crying. And I didn't really know what had happened. I didn't feel any pain or anything at that point. And I said, is it Jesus that has come back? I said, no, I don't have a rendezvous for that today. When Jesus calls me to go with him, I know that I'm not going to find him in that type of pain. Both of my feet had gone in underneath a beam, and the beam had closed in on my feet completely. And I was there and I was suffering. I was talking to God. I didn't believe that Jesus was coming back at that point, that was the return of Christ. And everywhere beside me was dark. The country was in darkness. And I stayed there. And when I had some good sense to me again, I started to pull at blocks of cement that were around me with both of my hands. My 2 feet, I couldn't do anything because the concrete had closed in on them. And I noticed a bar of iron had entered into my leg. And I was staying there in pain and suffering. And I'm thinking about my children at the house. I didn't know where they were. And I saw that my pocket was ripped, so I took my cell phone out.
Lèm tombe et fait appel, m'pa
When I
capable.
tried to call, I couldn't talk.
Commencé pour SMS,
I tried to send
SMS pas capable.
SMS messages, and they couldn't go.
et puis moi dis moi là me dit bon
I
Dieu,
just
m'a
resigned
prendre
myself, and I said, Lord, I'll wait for your will.
prier dans cœur.
And I was praying in my heart.
Et puis me dit tout collègue moi pas capable les cap prendre
I could hear my colleagues underneath the rubble that were calling and suffering.
et puis me commencer pas attendre encore commencer mourir
And then I stopped hearing their voices because they started dying.
et puis moi j'étais là.
And I stayed there.
Bon 2h du matin
About 2 o'clock in the
et
morning,
puis tu m'as pas là bon Dieu, m'as pas là bon Dieu.
and I was praying to God. I was praying to God.
M'entend on voix quoi Jeannot,
And I heard a voice say, Jano,
bon Dieu a servi à venir délivrer.
God that you serve is here to deliver you.
Et puis c'est comme ça,
And in this manner,
demain matin puis me garder moi toute famille moi commencer venir.
and I noticed that my family had started to come.
J'ai eu plusieurs prêtres qui étaient appréciés mon pile dans travail là.
There were some priests who had appreciated me a lot in the work that I was
Il a
doing,
prié pour moi en bas.
and they were praying for me under the rubble.
Et puis c'est comme ça tout frère me j'ai plusieurs frères.
And my brothers, there were several of them,
Ils ont commencé à couper
they started to cut at the wall.
et puis bon une de l'après-midi dans demain
About 1 o'clock in the afternoon in the next day,
yo prend
they took me.
et puis yo filé yo maré un code et puis
They
il a
took a
filé me
cord,
descendre un code
and they started to let me down on a cord
jusqu'à ce que matin.
until I arrived down at the ground.
Courir l'hôpital,
They ran to the hospital.
puis même quand tu m'as PC courir m'a chercher téléphone pour moi, papa m'pas carré papa.
Even while I was trying to find my phone to call my father, I couldn't find my father.
Ça après 3 jours
After 3 days,
et puis téléphone m'a réussi sonner.
my phone begins to ring.
C'est papa m'a dit côté oye.
And here's my father, and he says, "Where are you?"
Mais côté mieux.
Here's where I am. Here's where I am.
Puis tu courir pour chercher les amis, venir chercher moi.
And they said, "Hurry, get friends, come and get
Et
me."
puis il courir passer dans l'hôpital.
And he went in the first hospital,
Deuxième l'hôpital.
a second hospital,
Troisième
a
l'hôpital.
third hospital.
Bon jusqu'à ce que
Until
moi, Delma
We
75.
came to Delma 75.
Bon, il y en avait un paquet de docteurs amis
Found
allemands.
a lot of German friends,
Puis ils remettent moi,
and he
You bum
gave me
guarantee?
to friends, and he gave
ils
guarantee
m'ont pas coupé.
that I won't be cut.
Et dès là étant,
And in this time,
vinn prendre moi le voyer me organe à prendre soin.
he sent me to Leogon to take care of me.
Mais venez je dis même bien deux pieds moi là et il dit qu'il est rentré dans salle opération pour aller couper pied.
And I'm here to tell you that I'm here without having my legs cut off.
Heureusement bon Dieu te mettait sur route moi.
And I thank God for putting him in my way
Depuis l'hôpital là me dit bon,
from the hospital.
pas pour le pasteur comme
Since
pour le
this day,
papa.
I will not call him pastor anymore. I will call him my father.
Jusqu'à présent,
Until
ma vie,
now.
dis mon Dieu merci.
I'm alive and I'm thanking God. They were going to cut both of his legs off. This is where the iron went through. This leg that he's showing you right now was swollen up. It was swollen up this big. Imagine his leg was swollen this big. And at the Jordanian military base, they gave him shots in it and it put the swelling down. They did a lot of debriding. There was a lot of rotting flesh here that they took off. And while it was swollen, he didn't feel any pain whatsoever. The leg was swollen beyond feeling. But it's alive. I mean, you can see where the skin ripped from where it was swollen. He's got some scarring here, but his foot is normal now.
Que bon Dieu bénisse.
God bless you.
Have him stand up. Stand up shows legs strong.
And we'll feel he's strong. And we're here. God is good. God is good.